Hey everybody, what's going on? So today in this video, I'm actually going to turn my phone off because people seem to like to bother me as soon as I turn the camera on. This is the second time I've tried to film this video. The last time I got 20 seconds into the video and someone started to text me. Alright, so now we're going to be talking about my personal favorite baits for the fall time of the year. So fall and winter, fall/winter, whatever you want to call it. So these baits are going to kind of cross everything. They're going to cross moving baits, bottom baits, and middle of the water column, or close to the surface baits, which you don't really throw a whole lot during the winter time unless you get on some miracle bite, which some people do. So I figured I would throw a couple baits in that are of that sort. So we're going to start with close to the surface, or basically just all through the water column baits. It's something that you can throw up close to the surface all the way down to the bottom. So we're going to talk first about a swim jig. So this is a swim jig that you guys have seen me talk about quite a bit. It's a Strike King swim jig, hack attack, heavy cover swim jig with a Docks Lure Company 3.5 gunner swim bait on there in green pumpkin. Something about this color combination of the Smokin' Shad swim jig with the green pumpkin trailer seems to get bit and seems to look really good in the water. I don't know what it is. It's kind of a cross between two different patterns. It looks like a shad, but it also looks like a bluegill. And I really like it. I like it a lot. It looks really good in the water. I've had a lot of bites and I've caught some fish on this. So this is a Strike King hack attack swim jig. You guys can see the eyes are gone. I talked about this in one video, but when I was casting it, one of the eyes fell off. And I noticed that when it just had one eye, it was running kind of sideways. So I took my knife and popped the other eye out, so now I have an eyeless swim jig with no eyes. But it runs just as perfect as it would with both eyes in it, and it looks really good. I like the green pumpkin swim bait trailer on there as well. It looks kind of like a bluegill and kind of like a shad. It looks like both, and that's a really good bait. Anytime you can imitate shad and bluegill, you're going to do good. Whether you're fishing big lakes or small ponds, you can do pretty good with something like that. So another bait that I personally like to throw is a chatterbait. Now chatterbait is what a lot of people would consider more of a springtime bait, but I've done really good in the fall with it. And this color here is like a crystal shad, kind of a clear color. Now a trailer that I would normally throw with this would be the, do I have one? I thought I had one a second ago. Here's one right here. This is a 4-inch Docks Lure Company swim bait. Now you may be wondering why I wouldn't throw a 3.5 gunner swim bait on there. And I'll tell you why. The 3.5 gunner has a very wide kick. The Docks Lure Company 4-inch swim bait has more of a lighter, kind of a rolling kick. And that's something that I like on a chatterbait, because a chatterbait has all this head movement up here. Just that right there is just chattering around like crazy, and you don't want something back there in the back doing basically the same motion, because it'll either kill the blade or it'll kill the tail of the swim bait, and it won't do what it's supposed to. Sometimes I run a trailer hook. It personally just depends on... One second. And we're back. Sorry about that. But anyway, where was I at? I was at chatterbaits. Some people like throwing trailer hooks on chatterbaits. I do sometimes, and I don't sometimes. It mainly depends on the cover. If I'm fishing just kind of a bare bottom, or if I'm fishing rocks, I'll throw a trailer hook. But if I'm throwing around wood or grass, no trailer hooks. I'll usually just run a smaller trailer. Sometimes I'll cut down a 4-inch swimmer, or I'll use a 2-inch swimmer. 2-inch swim bait will work as well. But this here is just a normal Z-Man original chatterbait. I think this is an 1/8 ounce. It has a smaller head, so I believe this is an 1/8 ounce. But yeah, that's something that I do throw a little bit. Another bait is just a bare or a bladed Doc's Lure Company 3.5 swimmer, or 3.5 gunner swim bait. This right here and this one right here. So the differences between these, obviously you can see this one here has a weedless hook. I think this is a 3/16. The marking or the paint on it is really faded. It's kind of hard to read. I'm pretty sure that I bought the 3/16 3/0 hook. That's a VMC. I think it's a VMC swim bait hook. I can't really remember. I think it's a VMC 3/0 swim bait hook is what it is. And then I got this one here, which is a little ball swim bait head. This is an 1/8 ounce swim bait head with about a probably 2/0 hook. And then it has one of these little blades in it. You guys can see that the blade is obviously not attached to the jig head itself. And what it is I bought some screw lock blades. And if you guys go on eBay or Tackle Warehouse, they both have them. Just basically look up screw lock blades. Very simple. And most of the time it'll come up very, very quick. These here are Tackle Supply Depot is where I buy a lot of the blades. You guys can see I got a bunch of stickers from them. I've bought a lot of stuff from them. I've bought these. I've actually bought those hooks from them. What else? I bought that swim jig right there from them. What else did I buy? There's a lot of stuff on here that I've bought from them. These big swim bait hooks here I bought from them. Where's they at? I know they're here somewhere. Oh, come on, where'd they go? I had some owner beast hooks on this table. I may have put them up though. Here's some weightless swim bait hooks that I bought from there, 6/0 weightless swim bait. So I buy a lot of stuff from there, and that's where I got these blades. They're TDS Tackle Supply Depot, or TSD, or whatever their brand is. Little screw lock blades. They come in a 2-pack, and you can get Colorado or Willow. Trust me, I would go with Willow blades, not Colorado, because Colorado blades are smaller and they have a lot of thump. And in the fall, you want more of a smaller, just basically you're wanting flash over thump is what you're really wanting with a underspin like that. But those there are the white Doc's Lure Company 3.5 gunner swim baits. So the next thing that I throw would be this right here. Now this is probably the only treble hooked bait I really throw, and you guys can hear it. Probably it's got some rattles on it, and that is a little square bill. Now this is a flat-sided square bill. Now personally, I don't throw flat-sided square bills pretty much ever, but I've heard a lot about flat-sided square bills in the fall. So I suggest you guys give them a try. I personally have never tried it. It may work really good. It may work terrible. I don't know. But it does have rattles. You guys can hear those rattles. This is a H2O Express Chartreuse Sexy Shag square bill, flat bill, or flat-sided square bill is what this is. So, yeah. I don't throw square bills very much during the fall time or any kind of moving bait besides like a swim jig or a swim bait. That's pretty much the only things I throw. Oh, this one right here as well. The little 2-inch Doc's Lure Company swim bait works awesome as well. Now, depending on the cover, I talked about this yesterday in my bluegill fishing video, but depending on the cover, I'll go with either a 1/4 ounce short shank jig head, or I'll go with something like this, a little bit shorter jig head, a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter. You basically just take it, go straight through the nose. It's kind of hard to see with that light shining in my eyes. Then you just push it right on up there, and that's the little deal right there. Now, a lot of people would think you wouldn't get good hookup ratio for whatever reason. When I rig it up like this in small ponds that have a lot of grass or some wood, I don't think I've ever lost a fish or missed a fish with throwing like this. Usually I will hook them. I don't know if they just eat it head first, and that's why I hook them so well, but it works. A lot of people would complain about so much bait back here and no hook back there. I have no complaints. I've caught quite a few fish doing that. Everything from bass and bluegill to small crappie. My dad has caught some pretty decent crappie doing that exact same rig with those same exact type jig heads. So it works. So now we'll go ahead and go to the bottom baits. So first thing, a lot of people, depending on where you are in the country, love these type of baits, and that is a tiny little finesse jig. So this finesse jig here, I believe, is like purple, green, pumpkin, red, or something like that color. It's got a lot of purple, it's got a lot of green, and it's got a lot of red. That's why I really like it. It looks really good. This is a green pumpkin, magic colored mud bug as the trailer. This is a little, I think this is a Mollix brand jig head, and you guys can see is a very light wire jig head. It's got a very small hook, and it's pretty light. I think this is only an 1/8 ounce jig, but it sits really well on the bottom, and with a good trailer it kind of sits up like that, just like a defensive crawfish, and the bass will love this thing. So any kind of finesse jig would work. That there's just personally one of my favorites. It looks really good. Actually, I haven't caught any fish on it, but it looks really, really good. I haven't really fished it a whole lot, but it looks really awesome. So, keeping with the finesse style of fishing, two of my coming up into my new favorite baits is the mud bug and the slugger worm on a Ned rig. If you don't know what a Ned rig is, it's basically a jig head. Whether you use 1/4 ounce or 1/8 ounce is up to you. I use 1/4 ounce spot remover jig heads. Honestly, the only reason I use those is because I have them. They're easy to use. I already have them, and that's pretty much the only reason why I use them. But this color here is called Crystal Shad with green and purple flake. I hope you guys can see the flakes in there. Looks really good. And then this color here is Green Pumpkin Magic, the same color as my jig trailer on the little finesse jig. Next is a big bait, and is the 8-inch slammer worm. So a lot of people don't like throwing big baits in the winter. I don't understand that. Some people love it, depending on who you are. Some people love it. I know the tactical bassin guys throw those giant 10-inch swim baits and glide baits and stuff out in 50 feet of water, real slow moving. But I don't see them or anybody else really throwing big worms. And it can be a really good bait. Some people kind of overlook it, and I understand that they do, because a lot of people are thinking going with something like this, or going with a little swim bait like that. You know, some people are thinking, you know, go smaller, downsize. But you're going to get a lot of bites, but you're not going to get as many big bites. But you throw something like this, and you can catch a lot of big fish. The first fish I ever caught on an 8-inch worm was in the middle of February. Or no, it wasn't February. It was January 7th, I believe. If I remember correctly, it was January 7th when I caught my first fish on an 8-inch worm. It was cold. I was throwing it with 30-pound braid on a spinning rod, with a 1/2 ounce bullet weight and a 3/0 flipping hook. If you guys go way back, you guys will actually see that fish on video. One of my actually, it is my first video ever on YouTube. I did catch it with a different company's bait, which, you know, that happens. But, you know, now I use the 8-inch slammer worm, and it'll work. Trust me, it'll work. I've caught too many fish on that bait for anybody to say that it doesn't work, because if they do, they're lying. That's just what I believe. Another thing that I like to throw, this is actually the last bait in the video, is a Dropshot, which is kind of a rig, not really a bait, is a Dropshot. You guys can see what type of hook I use right there. Little Dropshot hook with a swivel in the eye. You got your line tie for your weight here, and you have your line tie for your main line right there. This is a 1/0 hook, size 1 or 1/0, I don't remember, one of the two. And then I've got a little 1/4 ounce weight right here. Now you guys can see I have a very short, you know, you can see compared to this is almost exactly 3.5 inch leader from the bottom of the weight to the line tie. So the reason why I use such a small leader is because that fish is going to be tight to the bottom. They're not going to be 16, 17 inches up off the bottom. They're going to be really tight to the bottom, especially if you're on more of a shell bed or a rock bed on the bottom. You're going to catch a lot more fish with a smaller little leader like this than you would with a longer one, because it's closer to the bottom. It looks like maybe a little crawfish or a little bluegill or shad that's dying, and them bass are going to come up and crush it. So the two baits. So I had a lot of debating on this topic specifically, the baits that I would use. Personally, I like using the Dropshot minnow. You guys know that's pretty much why I call it Dropshot minnow, because it looks awesome on Dropshot, and I've caught some fish doing it. But personally, I think in the wintertime something that would look really good is something like this right here. This here is the dragon worm. And you guys can see to here at the tail, it's got kind of a pointed tail. And this color is crystal shad with purple and a little bit of white flake. And then another bait that would be awesome for bass, crappie, bluegill, pretty much anything in the pond, you can catch it with this on a drop shot, is the 2-inch drop shot minnow. The little 2-inch version. So how you rig a drop shot bait, there's two ways you can do it, but this is my way. This is how I fish them. Take your hook, you run it right up through the chin of your bait, right through the nose, just like that. Now, anyone who would tell you that that right here, if I can grab it, if anyone ever tells you that this right here, this little rig with this little minnow bait doesn't catch any fish, they're lying to you. They're just straight up lying, because that will catch pretty much anything in the pond. And I'll do the same thing with the dragon worm. There's the dragon worm. Go straight up through the chin, out the nose, just like so. Now, back when I first started fishing a drop shot, that was quite a while back. When I first started making baits, the bait that I used to use, I don't think I have any of them here, but I had an 8-inch paddle tail worm. I don't really make it anymore. A lot of people didn't really want to use it. And pretty honestly, the slammer worm ended up taking its place. But the 8-inch paddle tail worm was a very popular worm that I used. It wasn't very popular to the selling audience, but it was very popular to me because I used to use it a lot. What I would do is I would cut the paddle down, make it just straight tail worm, and I would toss it around on a drop shot with a 16-inch leader. Now, I used to watch TV shows all the time, and they used to say that you're supposed to nose hook the drop shot. I never did that. What I did was I took an EWG hook, maybe a 2-aught or a 3-aught, and tied the EWG on there, tied my main line, went out, dropped it underneath the dock, sat there, jigged it up. And I'd sit there with my bait in the water for half an hour, 30 minutes, and I would never reel up, because I knew that somewhere, either under this dock or somewhere in the water nearby, there's going to be a fish that's going to swim by, see that little worm sitting there dancing along, that little 8-inch worm, and hit it. And sure enough, it ended up working. One day, me and my mom were out fishing. She was trying to catch bluegill, and I was trying to catch bass. And she had just lost her bait, so I was rebaiting the hook, and she was getting ready to cast back out. And she said, "Hey, Michael, I think you got a bite." I look down, my rod tip's going like this. And I grab it, set the hook, my drag starts just peeling. And I'm thinking, okay, I got a good fish. Honestly, at some point, I thought it was maybe a catfish or something, but it ended up being a bass. It got right up to the dock, about a 5.5 pound bass, and boom, just popped off just like that, swam off. And I was like, God, that sucked. And that was pretty much the only good fishing there was. Is that day, that weekend was pretty much the only good fishing that we had at that lake. We ended up going back there many times camping, and it was just never ever that good. That was a pretty good day. I ended up catching like 4 or 5 fish that day. That was pretty much it, and all of them came on a drop shot. I never caught a fish on anything else except for that 8-inch finesse worm and a drop shot. I don't know. Weird, but that's how it was. So, I thank you guys for watching. If you did make it this far, let me know down in the comments if you did make it this far, because I want to see how many people are actually going and watching the end of the video all the way through. So if you did make it to this point, leave a comment down below saying you did, or something along those lines. And also, if you made it this far, leave some comments down in the description, or down in the comment section. Leave some questions. I want to do a question and answer, a Q&A, however they say it. I want to do a Q&A video at some point, and I'm going to be doing a bunch of videos this week. So leave your comments down below, and I will read them in a video later on, and I'll give anybody who comments a shout out. You can comment as many questions as you want, everything from fishing related to personal life and all that stuff. It's fine. So thank you guys for watching. Once again, bye.